Story number 1. Halloween Night. Pursuit. A true nightmare in the shadows. It was Halloween night, 2015. A group of close friends, Sam, Liam, Ben, and Josh, ventured out into their peaceful lakeside town, dressed as characters from their favorite superhero universe. Sam, the second tallest, played Batman, while Liam, shorter and stockier, took on the role of Robin. Ben, tall and lanky, opted for Nightwing, and Josh, the roundest of the bunch, suited up as Bane. They roamed house to house, their candy bags getting heavier, even as the excitement began to wear thin. By 9 p.m., the streets grew quieter, the festive lights dimmed, and the glow of carved pumpkins became fewer. The friends decided to call it a night. Once their sacks overflowed, they were approaching a large Victorian house, wrapped in a layer of shadowy mist from the nearby lake. On the porch sat a massive black cauldron. But Sam's heart sank when he realized it was empty. Suddenly, a sharp knock on the window startled them all. Turning to the sound, they saw no one. But then the front door creaked open. An older man stepped out, his expression eerie, his eyes hollow. He wore a grimy sweatshirt and beckoned with a bony finger. "Come in, boys. I have more candy inside," he said, his voice a raspy whisper. Liam, the bravest of the group, stepped forward, but Sam pulled him back. "No thanks," Sam replied, trying to sound polite but firm. The old man's smile faded, and he simply watched as the boys backed away. The door closed behind him, echoing into the night. The friends hurried down the street, away from the unsettling house. They tried to shake off the uneasy feeling, but a deep sense of dread clung to them. As they walked past the woods, lining the edge of the nature preserve, Ben suddenly froze. "Guys, did you hear that?" he whispered. The group went silent, and the crunch of leaves and snap of twigs made their blood run cold. They strained their ears, trying to hear more. It wasn't just one set of footsteps. There were two, maybe even three, following them from the woods. Liam, always the defiant one, shouted into the darkness, "We're not scared. Leave us alone, or we'll make you regret it." His voice trembled, betraying his bravado. In that moment, a heavy branch cracked, and the boys' fear burst into a full-blown sprint. They ran hard, adrenaline pumping, hearing the unmistakable rush of feet pursuing them. Sam's chest burned, and he barely registered the sound of the backyard gate slamming shut as they dove into Josh's house. The boys locked the door, collapsing onto the living room floor, chests heaving. But the nightmare wasn't over. A loud bang echoed from the back door, and they heard a whisper of footsteps on the porch. Josh's mom and sister returned home moments later, flooding the house with light. Relief washed over them, but it was short-lived. An hour later, Sam's phone buzzed. A text from Josh. "It wasn't my mom," it read. Confused, Sam asked what he meant. Josh responded with chilling detail. His mom said she never went into the backyard that night. They called the police, but the shadowy figures from the woods were never found. Story number 2. The Halloween white van nightmare that still haunts me. Halloween night, 2018. 18-year-old Alex had promised his mom he'd chaperone his little brother, Lucas, and their friends, Mateo and Kai, through their neighborhood. Alex didn't mind too much. He'd dressed in a hoodie and jeans, happy to be the cool older brother who collected some candy for himself. It was getting late, and the younger boys, clutching their bags of sweets, insisted they weren't ready to go home yet. But Alex's patience was running thin. "We're wrapping this up soon," he told them. as they made their way down Maple Avenue, the last stretch before heading back. Suddenly, headlights illuminated the road, and a rusty white van pulled up alongside them. The van rolled to a slow stop, and the driver, a gaunt man with dark circles under his eyes, leaned over to speak. "Hey there, kid," he said, smiling uncomfortably. "Can you help me with something?" Alex felt a pang of unease. "I'm sorry, but we need to get home," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The man persisted, explaining that he needed an extra set of hands to fix the passenger seat. "It'll only take a second," he urged. Reluctantly, Alex agreed, not wanting to seem rude, but he told Lucas and the others to stay close. The van parked, and Alex opened the passenger door. He began fiddling with the seat, while the driver issued confusing instructions. "Lift it. Now push it back down. No, try again." It was like he was stalling. Then, out of nowhere, Lucas and his friends started screaming. Alex's heart dropped, and he stumbled as he rushed out of the van. Behind him, a second man had emerged from the back of the van and grabbed Mateo, pulling him toward the open door. Without thinking, Alex lunged at the attacker, pushing him away. The driver shoved Alex to the ground, and chaos erupted. Just when Alex thought things couldn't get worse, the front door of a nearby house swung open. An older man, armed with a rifle, stormed out onto the porch. "Get off my property," the man roared, firing a warning shot into the sky. The attackers panicked, abandoning their plan, and leapt back into the van. Tires screeched as the vehicle sped away into the night, leaving Alex gasping for breath and clinging to Lucas and the others. The homeowner, still holding the rifle, rushed over to make sure the kids were all right. His stern expression softened when he saw how shaken they were. Alex thanked the man repeatedly, but he couldn't shake the horror of what just happened. The police were called, and statements were given, but the white van had vanished. The next morning, Alex's heart sank as he watched the news. A 9-year-old boy from a nearby town had gone missing the same night. Alex couldn't stop the guilt gnawing at him, replaying the encounter in his mind. He knew he had done what he could, but the fear of almost losing Lucas and knowing someone else wasn't so lucky haunted him forever. Story number 3. Halloween Night. Horror. Chased by a machete-wielding phantom. Growing up in the remote backwoods of Northern Virginia, Halloween was more eerie than festive. My friends, Caleb, Trey, and I had grown used to the darkness of winding, empty roads lined with dense forest. That year, we decided to venture out for one last hurrah before adulthood pulled us apart. We figured we'd hit a few scattered houses, collect whatever candy we could, and call it a night. The evening started uneventfully. At our first few stops, kind families loaded our bags with chocolate bars and caramel apples. We exchanged nervous laughs, aware of how lonely the rural area made trick-or-treating feel. After a slow trudge down a long dirt road, we stumbled upon an old, run-down house that oozed Halloween spirit. The front yard was draped with faux spider webs, and carved pumpkins lit the walkway. But what caught our attention was the sign nailed to the front door. "Out of candy," it read. "For more treats, come to the backyard. If you dare." An arrow pointed around the side of the house leading into the woods. Caleb's eyes lit up. "Let's check it out," he grinned, always the thrill seeker. Trey shook his head, visibly anxious, but followed us reluctantly as we moved toward the dark backyard. The air felt colder, and every step we took seemed amplified by the dead leaves crunching beneath our shoes. In the backyard, a single torch cast an orange glow, illuminating a handwritten note pinned to a wooden post. "Candy seekers," it read. "The treasure lies near the flames." Caleb approached the torch, poking around in search of any hidden sweets, while Trey and I nervously watched our surroundings. Suddenly, something caught my eye, a flicker of movement in the upstairs window of the house. A shadow pulled back, and the blinds snapped shut. "Guys, I saw something," I whispered. But Caleb dismissed me. Then, Trey let out a gasp. Near the shed at the edge of the clearing, a figure was watching us, pale and unmoving. They vanished into the darkness as quickly as they appeared. My gut screamed at me to leave, but before I could say anything, Trey pointed into the woods. Emerging from the shadows was a figure in a tattered black hoodie, wearing a grotesque, expressionless mask. In his hand glinted the unmistakable blade of a machete. Caleb, still convinced it was a Halloween prank, took a hesitant step forward. But when the masked figure lunged, swinging the machete, reality hit us. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing Trey's arm as we bolted for the front yard. The sound of pounding footsteps followed close behind, and my heart felt like it might explode. We burst onto the dirt road, adrenaline propelling us back to Caleb's car. But just as we thought we were safe, another shadowy figure emerged, blocking our escape route. We split, screaming for help, until porch lights flickered on at a nearby house. The figures retreated, melting into the woods as suddenly as they had appeared. Shaking and out of breath, we banged on the neighbor's door, begging for help. The police arrived and followed us back, but the house was empty. The torches, notes, and any sign of life had vanished. Authorities later told us the property had been abandoned for over a year. That Halloween night left scars deeper than any trick-or-treating experience could. Rural nights have never felt quite as safe since. Thanks for watching video. Please like, share, and subscribe Nightmare Shadows.